Castlevania series has been around for nearly 4 decades, earning its place as one of the most influential franchises in gaming history. Although it's been over 10 years since the last mainline entry, the series still holds an impressive legacy with a rich catalog of titles. Today, we're taking a look at the 10 most expensive Castlevania games. Castlevania Requiem was released worldwide on October 26, 2018, exclusively for the PS4 via the PlayStation Store. It is a game compilation featuring Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was originally released for the Japanese TurboGrafx PC engine, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which launched on the PS1. Later, in 2022, limited run games would offer 3 tiers of physical copies with bonus loot box style goods. The most expensive of these being the Ultimate Edition, which was sold for $175 at the time. The Ultimate Edition included all of this stuff. This game compilation was heavily criticized as being one of the lazier Castlevania ports, as both of these games had already seen a fairly recent release on the PSP, known as Castlevania The Dracula X Chronicles. Complete in-box Castlevania Requiem Ultimate Edition is worth about $300. Castlevania The New Generation was released for the Sega Mega Drive in 1994. It is known as Castlevania Bloodlines in North America and Vampire Killer in Japan. This would be the only Castlevania title to make it onto the 16-bit Sega console. Unlike most Castlevania titles which take place in Transylvania around Dracula's castle, this entry spans across various locations in Europe. The plot follows the antagonist Elizabeth Bartley, who seeks to resurrect Dracula during the events of World War I. You play as one of 2 heroes, John Morris, a vampire hunter who wields the traditional vampire killer whip, and Eric Lacard, a Spanish nobleman who fights using his Alucard spear. Unlike the North American and Japanese versions, this European variant was heavily censored. Castlevania The New Generation is worth $320. The Castlevania Advance Collection is a compilation of 4 Castlevania titles. It was released digitally by Konami on September 23, 2021 for the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. The games included on this comp are all 3 Castlevania titles for the Game Boy Advance, those being Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow. It also includes Castlevania Dracula X, which was originally released for the SNES. As an added bonus, the game also includes various quality of life features, such as save states. Unlike the standard digital release of Castlevania Advance Collection, the Ultimate Edition, which was also released by Limited Run Games, is a physical collector's package featuring a ton of bonus goodies. It was available for pre-order in 2023 for $175. Castlevania Advance Collection Ultimate Edition is worth about $400. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness was released in 1999 for the N64. It is often described as both a prequel and expanded version of its predecessor, functioning almost like a director's cut of Castlevania 64. The game takes place 8 years before the events of Castlevania 64. You play as Cornell, a man cursed with the ability to transform into a werewolf. Cornell searches for his kidnapped sister Ada, who's been abducted by Dracula's minions. The story later intertwines with the events of Castlevania 64, connecting Cornell's prequel tale with the adventures of Reinhard Schneider and Carrie Fernandez. Legacy of Darkness basically includes all of Castlevania 64's content, but adds Cornell's prequel campaign as well as Henry's missions. It can be seen as the definitive version of Castlevania 64, though many at the time were disappointed by this title, since they were expecting it to be a full sequel. This is what probably contributed to its low sales and current rarity. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness is worth about $420. Castlevania II Belmont's Revenge was released in 1991 for the Game Boy. It's the direct sequel to 1989's Castlevania The Adventure, also a Game Boy title. The game stars Christopher Belmont, who had previously defeated Dracula in Castlevania The Adventure. Years later, Dracula returns and kidnaps Christopher's son, Soleo Belmont, corrupting him into servitude. Christopher must battle through Dracula's forces to save his son and finally destroy Dracula once more. In this title, instead of strictly linear progression, players can choose the order of the first 4 castles. The 4 castles are themed. There's a Plant Castle, Crystal Castle, a Cloud Castle, and a Rock Castle. After clearing them, Christopher advances to Dracula's castle for the final showdown. Castlevania II Belmont's Revenge is worth about $500. The Castlevania Dominus Collection was released for modern consoles in August 2024 via digital download. This compilation includes all of the Nintendo DS Castlevania titles, Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia. It also includes the classic arcade version of Haunted Castle, as well as a reimagined remake known as Haunted Castle Revisited. Haunted Castle Revisited features fully redesigned levels with enhanced boss encounters, whip power-ups, and checkpoints. It also features a menu for level selection, making it far more accessible than the brutal original. Like the other Castlevania comps, quality of life features were also added to the DS titles, such as remap buttons and the ability to toggle between DS-like dual-screen visuals. Castlevania Dominatrix Collection Ultimate Edition is worth about $600. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was released for the PS1 in 1997. The European release of SOTN had two versions of the game. The basic edition with the traditional Symphony of the Night cover art, as well as a limited edition collector's pack of Symphony of the Night, which was an officially released variant that included a music CD featuring selected tracks from the game, and an art book showcasing various SOTN artwork. This edition also sports a distinct cover art. While the limited edition had a modest print run in Europe, curiously, the standard PAL version is actually rarer. However, collectors often favor the limited edition for its bonus items. Castlevania Limited Edition is worth about $750. Castlevania Legends is a Game Boy title released in 1997. Notable for being the third and final Castlevania game on the handheld, it holds a unique place in the series, both for its story, which once placed it as the origin of the Belmont clan's war against Dracula, and later for its removal from the official timeline by Konami. The game stars Sonia Belmont, a teenage vampire huntress and the first Belmont to confront Dracula, according to this game's continuity. Sonia enters Dracula's newly risen castle, battling monsters and dark forces across multiple stages. During the story, Sonia even encounters Alucard, who tests her in combat before stepping aside. Ultimately, Sonia defeats Dracula, beginning the Belmont family's multi-generational war against him. For a time, this made Legends the origin story of the series. However, later Castlevania lore, especially with Lament of Innocence in 2003, we see Sonia retconned out of the timeline. Castlevania Legends was never re-released on Virtual Console or in any official Castlevania collection, making it one of the harder titles for modern fans to acquire legally. A complete in-box Castlevania Legends is worth $800. Castlevania Vampire's Kiss was released in 1995 for the PAL Super Nintendo. In North America, it was titled Castlevania Dracula X. This SNES game is a reimagining of the acclaimed 1993 PC Engine / TurboGrafx-16 title Castlevania Rondo of Blood, but it is not a direct port. Unlike Rondo of Blood, which featured Maria as a playable character, in this title she only appears as a captive. Historically, this title is usually compared unfavorably to both Rondo of Blood and the earlier SNES title Super Castlevania 4. It is most notably criticized for having some of the stiffest controls of any Castlevania game. One thing to note is that though Vampire's Kiss is its own original game, canonically it's seen as an alternate take on Rondo of Blood, rather than a unique entry in the Castlevania series. Vampire's Kiss is worth about $1,200. Castlevania for the Commodore Amiga was released in 1990. There was no original Castlevania title developed specifically for the Commodore Amiga, but there was an Amiga release of Castlevania as part of Konami's efforts to port their NES hits to European home computers in the late 80s. This port was primarily intended to be sold in Europe. As such, the port to the Amiga was done by Novatrade International, which was a Hungarian studio that worked on computer conversions for many other Konami titles. This was a straight port of the NES Castlevania, so naturally it follows the 6-stage structure with each stage ending with a boss fight. Unfortunately, the Amiga version did not take full advantage of its hardware, since it ran slower and stiffer than the NES game. The Amiga version also featured redrawn sprites and backgrounds, which honestly look pretty weird compared to the NES version. Consequently, this title is often criticized as one of the weaker versions of early Castlevania because of its sluggish gameplay and rough presentation. It is not widely re-released or emulated officially, meaning the only way to experience it today is through original discs, or emulation of the Amiga hardware. So finally, in the number one spot, a complete in-box Castlevania for the Amiga is worth about $3,000. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos.